Oh, yeah, it's time to talk a little bit of football here on a Monday. We don't have a Monday Night Football game, but that's okay. We got the NFC South right here on sportsbookreview.com. This is the NFL show. I'm Donnie Seymour and my co-host, Kyle Purviance. We are going to take you all the way through, just like we started last week, right through to Super Bowl Sunday and have a lot of fun doing it. It's Monday. Yeah, there's NBA going on. There's Major League Baseball going on. There's hockey tonight, but you know what? September 10th is, Kyle. The NFL kicks off. We're going to be ready for it right here, my man.
Oh, yeah, I'm already ready for it, and the days are going by pretty fast. It's not far away. It's less than 3 weeks, or it's like that's going to go by in a flash. I'm really excited. I'm excited to talk about this division because obviously this is the division that got the most hype in the offseason, of course, with Tom Brady, et cetera. So that's going to be a lot of fun, but we're going to be ready week one. This is all I do in my spare time now. This is it. I'm a hermit in a dungeon, and so I'm excited. It's true.
No, it is. I mean, I love like the NFL is such a regimented thing because, you know, whether or not you're doing NBA, hockey, baseball, which is every day. So it's the same game plan in and out. The one thing I do like about the NFL and going over is you get that whole week. You know, you can wash over it on Monday what happened. Tuesday, you start to look forward. Wednesday, you're in mode. Then you're getting the practice reports in. You're getting the injury reports in. And then you gear up on the weekend. And again, Kyle and I are both going to culminate our weeks on Sunday morning, 12 o'clock with the pregame football show right up till kickoff. So we got you covered all the way through on sportsbookreview.com. If you haven't done so yet, every time I do the show, this number rises, Kyle. 66,700 people have subscribed. We do want to thank you for that. Turn those notification bells on because if we're going NBA, if we're going soccer, hockey, baseball, football, whatever it is, get it delivered directly to your inbox. Come into the chat box and certainly say hello. But why don't we just get into it here? We're talking NFC South. If you guys haven't followed on yet, taking it division by division all the way through, starting with the NFC. We're going to hit the AFC starting a little bit later next week, and we'll get right through it and see what happens. Let's take a look here. NFC South, if we just look at the odds here, Saints minus 115 as a favorite. Usually, Kyle, we're talking about plus 100, plus 150, plus 75 to win these divisions like we talked about in the NFC North. But this one has a clear-cut favorite at minus 115. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at plus 160, Atlanta Falcons at 700, Carolina Panthers at 1,700. Before we get into team by team, look, it's going to be hard-pressed to knock me off the Saints to say they're going to win this division. And I know a lot of people are saying, you know what? Tom looks 20 years younger. Tom's ready to go. He's finally got the weapons back. They're going to be that dog to mess around with. But until somebody knocks the Saints off here for me, Kyle, I'm going to lean the Saints. What are your early thoughts here on this division?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I just don't see it. When you look through the Saints' schedule, you really don't find a game where you would pick them where you would make them an underdog right now until maybe the 49er game in November, depending on how that looks. Yeah. All the way down to the Chiefs in like week 15. So the schedule, I think, favors them. And what really favors them, in my opinion, is a lack of turnover. There's very little turnover. All they really did was add a number 2 wide receiver, which they desperately needed to do anyways. Few pieces in the draft, etc. So, you know, I guess one thing, they are starting a rookie center, that the kid in the first round they drafted out of Michigan. He looks like he's the starter in camp right now. So maybe there's some growing pains with that, I suppose. But they look really good. I like that they added Malcolm Jenkins to the secondary. Yeah, the Saints look really, really good to me. And then, you know, since I'm a glutton for punishment, when I look at that Falcons like plus 900, I'm like, if Matt Ryan gets hot, Julio Jones gets hot, maybe that young rookie corner shows up, I could maybe talk myself into losing money on the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to look at. And Justin Bilbo's here says, I actually think Carolina's going 4-12 or 3-13. Don't tell Kyle that. Keep that as secret here. So we'll get to the Carolina Panthers in just a few moments. But it is a wide open division, and I'm an over guy, team total over. And you try to look at some of these offenses, and they should be high powered. I mean, you still have Matt Ryan down in Atlanta. You still look at New Orleans, and say what you want about Drew Brees' arm strength. He still plays in a dome. And again, Tom Brady coming down to Tampa Bay. They didn't have any problems scoring points last year. They just had problems turning it over. So maybe Tom Brady will help turn that tide. But why don't we get into it? We're going to start, and as we go, list the favorites first, go all the way through and add some, you know, tidbits here on what we think. The New Orleans Saints minus 115 to win this division. Again, Drew Brees is there. Jameis Winston actually comes over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Probably not going to play, and maybe in blowouts, but he's expected to be that third string guy. If somebody gets injured, he can step up, but also take a step back in his career, try to learn, similar to what Teddy Bridgewater did. Now he's making some good money over there in Carolina in the same division. But we take a look at the Saints. The thing that pains me the most here, Kyle, is I look at the Saints, and along with, and this same topic is going to keep coming up until we see it week one, the Seattle Seahawks home field advantage, the Kansas City Chiefs home field advantage, the New Orleans Saints home field advantage. What is it going to be? Like, even if they let 10,000 people in, But if you're still in a dome, like, how do these teams get ready for playing in New Orleans? They go into their bubbles and they crank up the volume on the radios and blast rap music, country music, whatever music they can get to try to disrupt the offense. What is going to take place when they actually get down to New Orleans? Are you going to be able to crank the decibels up as if there's 75,000 people in there? That's a big thing because, Kyle, just looking at the actual schedule, you get Tampa Bay at home to start the season. Wouldn't you like 75,000 people that are cranked up, letting it rip? Well, if it's going to be quiet, that's an advantage to Tom Brady. And then also in week 3, Green Bay comes to town. You want it cranked up and as loud as you can be. I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out because a big part for me with betting New Orleans Saints and why I like them as favorites, their home field advantage is awesome. What is it going to be this year? That's a major question for me.
Right. I absolutely agree. And you're right.
Yeah.
It's Chiefs, Saints, maybe the Packers, Seahawks with those huge home field advantages and those super loud crowds. I actually wondered, are they going to, can't they have a guy go figure out how high the voltage gets at each of these stadiums and kind of give them a median average or something like that to recreate that advantage? Because you're right, you're going to see a lot fewer penalties against New Orleans opponents if they're playing there. False starts run rampant, especially when that crowd is cranked up. Drew Brees and that offense are electric there, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fans. So it does change some things for me, but I think that's kind of offset by, if you look at all the teams in the division, they're the ones with the most cohesion. They've been together. They know each other. They don't have to play. They wouldn't have played preseason anyways. So I like the Saints quite a bit. Even the little Ty Montgomery addition I think is interesting because they're still kind of thin at wide receiver even after Sanders and Michael Thomas. Ty Montgomery, before he was a running back, they made him a backup running back. He was a slot wide receiver for a while. So I like the additions. They didn't lose anyone, I can't see anything on the board that makes me go, oh, how are they going to replace him? Only a couple backup tight ends opted out for COVID. Saints look strong. I think that's where the pick is right now. And I don't even hate the over total on the games.
Yeah, it brings up a good point because the good teams, the good franchises, right? And you're coming into a COVID-19 era where you really don't get that much practice time. Drew Brees been there a long time. Sean Payton been there a long time. Not a lot of turnover on a team where you have to figure out verbiage and what makes sense. I like the fact that they finally got some help behind Michael Thomas with getting Emmanuel Sanders, a nice veteran presence on the opposite side that when Thomas is getting triple teamed, he can do some damage on the opposite side. We already know they have a good offensive line. Taysom Hill works in perfectly to me in this offense. I'm real excited for what the New Orleans Saints can do. But again, look, Drew Brees isn't getting younger. Phillip Rivers isn't getting younger. Tom Brady doesn't get younger. They're really, really good quarterbacks. But again, we're talking about Father Time is always going to catch up. But on top of the heap, I still think they're the team to beat. Getting Malcolm Jenkins, nice little piece to the secondary. They actually just cut Nigel Bradham, which makes me laugh because Bradham with comments saying, it's nice to be in New Orleans. Finally, with a winning franchise, even though he won a Super Bowl like a year and a half ago with the New Orleans Saints. Kind of funny. Then he gets cut, so now he's out of a job in that spot. So maybe a veteran linebacker shakes loose, but they're going to be able to get pass rushes. But again, I still can't get over. And you bring up a good point, which is the point I always like to make. What are we going to do with home field advantage? Because that's a major reason. Who wants to bet it? You do DFS fantasy stuff all the time. Drew Brees at home in prime time. Light it up. 300 yards. Touchdowns. They cover it just about every single time. But if there's no fans in the stands and you get a little muffled noise back there, is that still going to stand up? I still like the Saints at minus 115. We're taking a look at the team total, which is 10.5 at plus 100. It's what they do. If we go back and take a look at their trends, how about the last 3 years? 11 wins, 13 wins, 13 wins. Exactly. I think they can get to that spot. And again, if you're going to pay a little bit of juice, you can get it at 10. They're a 10-win team to me, Kyle. How about you?
Oh, yeah. And look, you got the Tampa Bay game week 1. I think that's a perfect time to play them before they've really had time to be on the field together. So I like that. Then you get the Raiders, the Packers. We talked about the Packers. I still think the Packers were an overrated 13-3 team last year. They weren't to me. I still think the Saints are better. Then it's the Lions, the Chargers, the Panthers, the Bears. It sets up well for them to 7-0, 8, 6-1, 8-1. I like the Saints quite a bit. I like the over right now as well.
Yeah, I can't look, and they're a favorite to win the division, minus 115. So you don't even get a great return value. Hey, exactly. And you could play, if injuries happen, we can't play it as if injuries are going to happen. You just have to look at the team overall. Alvin Kamara is sensational out of the backfield. Yeah. They're going to have a really good year. But how about team number 2 in this division? Probably the most talked about team in this division or in the National Football League over the past couple months. Why? Tom Brady goes down to Tampa Bay. We saw him last year. Underperformed in New England. Offensive line really didn't work out for him. They couldn't run. They had nobody get separation at wide receiver. Barely any tight ends. That's not going to be the case this year down in Tampa Bay. You're talking about Tom Brady in the heat, rejuvenated. But if we do remember, look, winning on the road is hard in the NFL. But it seems like when Tom Brady went to play the Miami Dolphins or the Tampa Bay Bucks or to the Jacksonville Jaguars, he struggles down there. Old people go to retire in Florida. Tom Brady looking to extend his career. Dynamic wide receivers. You have a speed guy in the slot and Scotty Miller, two dynamic wide receivers with Godwin and also Mike Evans on the other side. Tight ends out the wazoo with speed. Of course, they added Rob Gronkowski. Decent offensive line. The question is going to be, can the defense hold up? But if we're just trying to play it off last year, because again, I'm not that high on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kyle, but over the past couple of months, I've slowly been leaning in that direction because again, extra playoff this year in the NFL with each conference. I think they can make it into the playoffs, but the question is going to be is last year we saw Jameis Winston throw for 1 million yards and 1 million interceptions. Can Tom Brady give you 275 yards a game, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns with no interceptions? That's all they're missing. But my eye didn't lie to me last year. He really took a step back. But now you're hearing down there, boy, Tom Brady looks like he's 25 years old. When you know that's coming, I sort of doubt it a little bit. But again, you're talking about a team plus 160 to win the division, a team total at 9.5. I think they get in the playoffs this year. I actually do.
Yeah. I don't mind that. You're absolutely right about this team. Winston threw for a ton of yards. I kind of went back and looked. Winston and Brady only had about 20 or 30, differential in attempts. Winston threw a few more passes. Winston, of course, threw 5,100 yards and turned the ball over 35 times. It was kind of a bad Madden player stat line.
The 30-30,
the 30-30. He went Barry Bonds on everyone. But but Tom Brady still threw for 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on what was kind of a bad year for the offense all around. Yeah. So I think the offense will be okay. It won't be as vertical as it was, but you're also getting 9 turnovers instead of 35 turnovers. So they're not going to have to throw it deep on every play, desperately trying to come back. The real problem for this team is they can't stop the pass at all. And they did nothing that I can see to improve the secondary in Tampa Bay. They were the best rushing defense in the league. Their front 7 is stout. They brought back Sue. Everyone else, they lost Gerald McCoy. Right? Or is that the wrong team?
Yeah. No, McCoy went to Dallas. Yeah. Now.
Yeah. So my brain, it starts to happen. But I just don't see the defense being any different than they're going to be. So teams are going to be able to throw all over the place on this team. So you better hope Tom Brady can come out and sling it downfield. He's got the receivers to do it. There's no excuses this year. That wide receiver core is stacked. Again, they were terrible running the ball last year too. They could not run the ball. They could stop the run. Then they could throw and not stop the pass. They're kind of back and forth team, and that's kind of what I think they are. I think 9 wins probably will get you that last playoff spot. I don't mind them right about 9. I'm a little nervous about the 9.5. I don't know that they get to 10. I feel better taking the under on that. Plus 110, plus 120, something like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it's just an interesting because it's great for the NFL, and it's why we talk about it so much is because you have these lightning rod moves that you never thought Tom Brady would ever leave the New England Patriots, and then he ends up in a really good spot. And we're always because he goes to Tampa Bay. Bruce Arians. I love Bruce Arians. I love how gruff he is. He's no BS. He's going to have a cocktail after the game. He's going to put on that Kango hat and he's going to go out there and coach and really let your feelings. But I actually thought Tom Brady would have made a better move to me if he went out and played for the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, you don't get the fanfare and you're the second fiddle in LA. I get that, but you would have leaned on a wicked defense and had a ton of options still on your offensive side of the ball to try to make that second career move. It'll be interesting to see how it works out, but it's not going to be for weapons. Like if we see a rejuvenated Tom Brady, it's because that he has to throw the ball 5 yards and these guys can basically do whatever they want with it. You have 2 speed tight ends up the gut to take away the safeties. You have dominant wide receivers on the outside. You have a little water bug in the slot, Scotty Miller, and then you have some, see which running back fills in that committee in the backfield. It should be a good season for Tom Brady, but again, don't be surprised. Like week 5, week 6, calf starts hurting. All of a sudden, have you seen Tom Brady's knees, how wrapped up they are during the year? Or you start seeing some things pop up where, hey, Tom's got to scale back in practice to try to save his arm. I think it's going to be an overall good year for Tampa Bay. But also, if you take a look at the schedule, again, starts out tough at New Orleans. Will there be any fans? You get Carolina at home. And then you go out to Denver. Not only a tough place to play with the altitude, but also the loudness of the fans in the stands. Will there be anybody in Denver? At Chicago, October 8th. Any fans there? You're talking about a team that could be disrupted on offense, which is going to be the name of the game for them. But again, no fans there. You should be able to operate here.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And Tom Brady, look, he's got the trainer, he's got the TB12, maybe a couple packages come his way. The NFL's pretty busy testing for other things right now. Who knows how stringent that's all being. I know if I'm 43-year-old Tom Brady, I'm like, screw it. I'm going for it. This is I want one last hurrah here in Tampa Bay. I know that's just what I would, the track I would be on. But a couple of things about their rookies. They drafted that, you talked about the running back situation. Ronald Jones kind of started to validate himself a little bit last year. They were still 24th in rushing. Everyone knew they were going to come out, throw the ball every down, and give up a ton of yards through the air and give up a ton of points, which I still think they're going to do. I think they'll be a fun team to bet the overs this year. Another one of them, as long as Brady, it's a great point. He's always better, especially in the DFS world. It's always my rule. I'll play Tom Brady after a bye week or on a 10-day rest after a Thursday night game. I never want to play Tom Brady when he's played Monday night and he's playing it early Sunday morning, because he just doesn't look the same. He hasn't for a few seasons. That's absolutely correct. You've seen it through the years, but still 4,000 yards last year. It's a quiet 4,000. I was actually kind of surprised that when I looked at it, that he had thrown for 4,000 yards with the way that offense was last year. For me, it's how they're going to stop the run. But it looks like right now their rookie that they drafted, who everyone's sort of high on, is sort of number 3 on the depth chart. They're talking about him as a kick returner in camp. So that's just kind of something to keep an eye on if you're betting Tampa Bay. But I think 9 wins is about right. That's where I'm at on them.
No, it seems, and I do. I wanted to, as soon as the move was made down, I didn't think it was the right move for Brady, but you try to take a step back. They add some pieces there. The offense should be good. The expanded playoff scenario format. And we all know NFL wants to see Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs as well. So money is money. And we both know what really happens here. Junior Brown in the chat box here, obviously a good friend of the network here. This offensive line isn't great, but Arians, we use some of the quick throw stuff he used in New England in third down, in long third down situations. He might take some shots. I agree with that. I do. And look, Tom Brady better be throwing for 4,000 plus yards this year. There's no reason he cannot do it, because it just says, look, if the defense isn't great and you have great weapons and you play in great weather and you have the Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints, and also Tampa Bay, who can engage in shootouts. Therefore, you should get some points. And again, you're dealing with better weather and domes down in the South, specifically in this division. Let's go to some of the long shots here, Kyle, and talk about them. What I mean by that is those Atlanta Falcons seem to be the bane of my existence. This is my 4th year of doing videos with sportsbook.com on the NFL. And it seems like every year I get to August, I'm like, you know what? Falcons look like they're going to be good this year. It's Matt Ryan, it's Julio, it's Ridley. I just need a little bit of defense. They're built for speed this year on defense. They got pass rushers. They got athletic linebackers, decent secondary. And every single year, this team seems to come out soft. Obviously, they made the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But looking at what they do and what they do well, I'm like, man, this team matches up well. And I always end up kicking myself when they're 3-5 to start the year and they're blowing leads and they can't get it together. Is this the year that there's no pressure on Atlanta when usually they're looking to rival the New Orleans Saints and try to win the division, where now they're 3rd place, plus 700, a team total of like 7 to 7.5, depending on where you shop. With lowered expectations, Kyle, does Atlanta take the next step here?
Well, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'll go ahead and say yes now. You guys can come back later and tell me I'm an idiot, and that's fine. I'll eat that. I'll eat that crow.
I've been there.
Of course, I love the Falcons' offense. And look, they struggled last year, one of the worst teams in the league running the football. Devontae Freeman was hurt and didn't really seem like himself. So they bring in Todd Gurley. Then you kind of look, Todd Gurley's kind of been regressing, averaged under 4 yards a carry last year. So you worry about that sort of stuff. A lot of turnover, losing Desmond Trufant. Austin Hooper, I think, is a huge loss. But they did bring in Hayden Hurst to sort of fill that void. It's just going to be a very young secondary again. Now, according to the camp reports, A.J. Terrell looks really good, their first-round pick out of Clemson. If Matt Ryan gets hot and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley stay healthy, they certainly have the weapons. Now, with Gurley's a good receiver out of the backfield, too. I think you see Todd Gurley has a lot to prove. I'm 50-50. I can talk myself into Todd Gurley and out of Todd Gurley and into Atlanta and out of Atlanta in the same, 5 minutes. But if I'm going to take a long shot in this division, you could find, if you look across the league, you could find a lot worse teams with shorter odds than Atlanta with, a Super Bowl quarterback, great receivers, a Pro Bowl running back. I might throw $100 on that plus 700 to win the division. Why the hell not?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's interesting because a lot of the guys that you thought were dogs, like the Vic Beasleys of the world, first-round draft pick really are underwhelming. Then he goes out on the free agent market, goes to Tennessee, and doesn't feel like even showing up for a week in Tennessee. So if you're Tennessee, like, hey, what do we even take a shot on this guy? Should have listened to Atlanta of why you didn't re-up your first-round draft pick of a couple of years. Also losing Adrian Claiborne. So a new look defensive line, which maybe gives some options there. When you have a head football coach that's a defensive coordinator with Mike Smith, sometimes that's exactly what you want to – excuse me, Dan Quinn. I apologize, Mike Smith, old school Atlanta Falcons. But looking at the team overall, the adjustments they made are more for toughness, because if those players aren't working out, even if they're a first-round draft pick, what do GMs mostly do, Kyle? I'm going to stick by my first-rounder. I drafted him because if I get rid of him and don't re-sign him, that looks bad on me. At least they're willing to move on. But it's kind of interesting that, like, the original point I brought up was, does Atlanta over-exceed now because they're not expected to do much? Or you're reading the clippings going, dude, we used to be trying to fight for the division and get to a Super Bowl. We have an MVP quarterback, an MVP-type wide receiver. Why aren't we being looked at more? Let's really make it count on the field, because some of the changes they made, I like the move getting Dante Fowler. Now, Todd Gurley 4 years ago, that would be a coup. But again, when you say you're 50-50 on Todd Gurley, it's 50-50 on Todd Gurley. It's 50-50 on his knee if it's going to hang in there, So you're playing a lot. If you can tell me, hey, we're going to limit Todd Gurley, we're going to give him 15 touches a game, he's going to make it through the season and be elite, we're ready to go. Because watching the Super Bowl just 2 years ago with the Rams, if Todd Gurley's healthy, the Rams beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but he wasn't healthy. That's all you were trying to weigh in to see what was going to take place. So a lot of moving parts on this team that can work out. But again, I do like to joke with the crowd noise, because if there's one team that's going to be able to pipe that crowd noise in better than anybody else, it's the Atlanta Falcons. Already got draft picks for trying to do that. But if you look at the state of Georgia also, Kyle, Georgia Bulldogs and also Georgia Southern, 25% capacity. So if college football teams in the state are going to do that, you're probably going to get the 25% there in the dome. So maybe you get 15,000 fans. But again, if you're in a dome, you keep the roof closed, you crank the decibels, that's going to be tough on the opposite side. And that's what I'm trying to weigh. But we're not talking about them plus 200, plus 250. That's a 7-1 ticket. And a 7 wins gets you. Look, you have a good quarterback. And you're saying maybe 7 wins. Why not, right?
Scared money does not make money. I say that all the time. And you got to have a little fun. You just never – I mean, if you look, just like I talked to, before the show about, telling my buddy not to bet on the 49ers last year, because I watched Jimmy Garoppolo get torched by Denver in the preseason. I'm like, man, we're going to win 5 games. This is not going to be good. And it just, they turn it around. They get hot. This team has the offense to do it. It's just if they can handle all that defensive turnaround. There's a lot of turnaround on that defense, like you talked about. I do agree with Junior teams with continuity, on offense. Their offense will certainly be there. It's just the defense you worry about. And if Todd Gurley can be anything close to what he was in 2017, even
if we get, what do we get out of Julio too? Like, if you told me, Kyle, Julio is going to be healthy 16 games, I'm going like this. I'm going like this with the team totals every game. But how many times do we see it? And you Calvin Ridley for that instance. Like, you got a team, it's like Ridley's going in the first quarter. Like, oh, shoot. And then they show a highlight in the second half on a 48-yard catch by Julio Jones. Oh, boy, Julio's limping off the field. And then you got nobody. That just seems like
every game.
You're
every game.
Right.
It is.
And now you throw Todd Gurley in there. Hey, look at Todd. 4 carries, 31 yards in the first quarter. Boy, why didn't he play the rest of the game? Because we're worried about his knee. But look, in the NFL, you're looking for value. Like, some of these teams are already up here, and they're priced that way. In the end, to try to get those team totals and to see who's going to – you're trying to get the come up on the next team that should be able to get there. Buy the stock market, right? Buy the dip. Buy the dip in Atlanta. It makes sense here. 7-1, team total around 7. This is what it is here. Let me take a look at their schedule real quick to see if there's any odds and ends that we see. Again, they start with Seattle, which Seattle's going to become the cross-country to 1 o'clock game. So even though Seattle seems like the only team in NFL history that doesn't buy into we're going to play at 1 o'clock on the East Coast, so it's 10 o'clock, our body clocks are off. They seem to win whenever they come east. But at Dallas, Chicago, Green Bay, Carolina, Minnesota, Detroit, it all matters at your start. You know as well as I do, Kyle. You start off 3-0, you're like, we can make the playoffs. You start off 1-2, it's like, oh my God, the sky's falling.
Yeah, and that is a tough little stretch to start. I mean, Dallas, Seattle, Chicago is going to have a good defense again.
Yep.
Then Green Bay. So you figure they're probably the underdog those first 4 games. Maybe the Bears. The Bears will probably be a pretty tight line. Then Carolina, they're going to be the favorite there. Depending on what happens, these opinions all change after 2 weeks. After 45 players get injured.
We'll erase the tapes. Don't worry.
Yeah, just erase everything. But so it will be tough. But you remember, this team started out slow last year and then really came on at the end of the year. They were embarrassing,
wins, right?
Yeah, they were bad. Yeah, they were giving up points left and right they were the worst defense in the league. They were talking about them being one of the worst defenses ever. Then they kind of picked it up.
Yeah. Yep.
And, so then they get rid of all those defensive players and a new defensive line. But I do like Fowler and even Deion Buchanan, I think, is a good little addition, and Terrell. So, I'm going to take a bite of the Falcons, and I'll regret it later, but I'm fine with that.
Yep. Rewind the tapes last year to our preseason, and I'm like, man, this is one of my best bets of the year, team total wise. And I'm like, after by 5 or 6 weeks, I'm like, I'm an idiot, man. Somebody get rid of these tapes out here. But this is why we do those shows, because we're going to see what went wrong, and maybe a few of those gems come through. Like, damn, remember Kyle talking about it on August 24th? Like, he was digging the squad, and then here we go hitting the team totals. But let's get to the fourth team here, and a real intriguing team. Not because we think you're going to do damage or heck, even actually make the playoffs, but a lot of moving parts, and that's with the Carolina Panthers, and I love these moving parts, Kyle. I really do. You're talking about Ron Rivera moving on to Washington, Luke Kuechly retiring, which, this was one of the best linebackers to ever play the game, and you get the new coach coming in. He retires. Greg Olsen goes out to Seattle. So a lot of those locker room mainstays, and yes, including Cam Newton, are all gone. So the one good thing is when you come in with the new regime, you don't, even though you would have loved to have Luke Kuechly, Greg Olsen, and who knows if you want a Cam or not, he was really on his way out anyway. Yeah. You have that new style where you can come in and say, look, the old guys that you looked up and listened to, they were awesome. They're not here anymore. Let's see if we can get this franchise back on track. And Matt Rule comes in, and I love him. Joe Brady's going to be the offensive coordinator. If you guys don't know Joe Brady, passing wizard. You want to talk about Joe Burrow and his one-year turnaround? That was Joe Brady. Now he comes up, and also longtime assistant Phil Snow, who's been with him all the way back from Temple, all the way through to Baylor, and now heading into the NFL. When we take a look at this team, and again, we talk, there is a lot of moving parts, and rightfully so. I love the fact that they got Teddy Bridgewater. Not because Teddy's going to come in and throw for 325 yards a game and 3 touchdowns. You have that steady influence at quarterback, which is exactly what Matt Rule is looking for. You have an all-world running back there that you paid a lot of money to say, hey, look, we might not be good over the next year or two, but we're going to make sure that we feed you and you're well compensated. And that's what it's going to be. Wide receivers really fast. Rebuilt defense. I don't know if it pays dividends this year, Kyle, at plus 1,700. 17, not to win the Super Bowl, not to win the NFC, to win the NFC South 17-1 and a team total of 5.5. And I like to joke around. You get like 4 to 5 wins in the NFL just by signing your name on the paycheck. I think they can steal one more win. I'm a buyer on Carolina. Don't think they get in the playoffs this year, but 2 to 3 years, this team's going to be good, man, to me.
Yeah, this is going to be one of my favorite teams throughout the DFS season. I'm very excited for Carolina, and I think you're right. They're getting a lot of grief. I know they play in a tough division, and the Saints and the Bucs are really good, so that's driving that number. But that's almost disrespectful. Their offense, I love that offensive core. That trio of wide receivers is one of the best trios in the league. Christian McCaffrey, you add to that, who's basically a 4th wide receiver out of the backfield. Teddy Bridgewater's a step up from Cam Newton as far as getting the ball out, accuracy. Cam Newton's just not a very accurate passer. No. So if you're trying a nice steadying force there, I like Teddy Bridgewater quite a bit. That's who Gerald McCoy left for Dallas, was Carolina. He snuck in and was in Carolina last year. The problem with Carolina, they were 29th in the league in rushing defense. They lost James Bradbury, who was their best corner. They brought in Eli Apple. That's Eli Apple, if you remember, was just the victim on the outside all Sunday long for New Orleans, right?
And the Giants. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I think this is going to be an exciting team. I think every week the over is in play with this team. They're going to give up a ton of points, but I think that offense is good enough where they score a lot of points. Just some young players. It's going to be a young defense, a changed over defense, a new head coach coming in from college to Baylor. How does that transition? But I love that they brought in some XFLers. PJ Walker, shout out to those Houston Roughnecks. They are the only team that was worth watching in the XFL. They were fun to watch. They bring him over. So I just had to give the XFL a shout out. Why not?
2015, they had 15 wins. That was the year Cam Newton was MVP. They moved on to the Super Bowl. Then they dropped down to 6 wins. 2017 reemerged in the playoffs with 11 wins. Then 2018, 7 wins. And 2019, 5 wins, completely coinciding with, arm problems, leg problems with Cam Newton. But now they go a different direction in quarterback. I don't know how I do like their wide. They bring in Robbie Anderson, which is a nice move because you can't teach speed in the NFL. He can get deep, but you also have a couple water bugs out there, like DJ Moore's, the Curtis Samuels. They should be okay to keep that offense moving. Christian McCaffrey maybe get a little bit more space out of the backfield. But I do like the fact that in the draft, typical Matt Rule, he goes out and gets the big uglies, the tough guys. Derek Brown as a defensive tackle in the second round goes out and get a defensive end, Gross Matos out of Penn State. So looking to beef that up. I don't know if he's going to go into the season. I'm talking about Matt Rule. what type of style he wants. Because I would think it'd be more physical. We're going to set the tone. I don't know if they're going to air it out all over the place, but I like the fact that they're bringing in a young offensive coordinator that's going to give some new looks into the NFL. You got a veteran quarterback who can handle it, who's overcome injury in Minnesota, moved down to New Orleans, played really well in the backup role, learned a lot, and now is a more seasoned player. So I think they have the components to compete, and we're talking about 5.5. I'm actually going to go over the total. If this team gets coached well, like I think they are, they can get 6 wins here to me, Kyle.
Absolutely. And you start looking at their schedule. Week 1, they get a winnable game right away. That's a good way to start against the Raiders. Sign me up for that.
Yep.
Then the Buccaneers, of course, and the Chargers. They're going to have a good defense. We'll see what that offense looks like, with Tyrod Taylor. Maybe Justin Herbert sneaks into the Cardinals. They're they're the sexy pick of the offseason, the one everyone expects to start moving up, and Kyler Murray. But that could very well be a winnable game. The Falcons, the Bears. So it's not this overwhelming schedule to start off. So maybe a chance to sneak out 2 or 3 wins in the first, 7 weeks of the season. Then you're feeling pretty good about your total because, later on in the year you play the Lions. You get to play Washington. So there's some winnable games. And I like the offense. I for some reason, I just think this is going to be a fun offense. They were fun last year, too. Kyle Allen would have huge games. DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are 2 really good young wide receivers. I think adding Robbie Anderson going deep on the outside. I'm a little bit higher on Carolina. I think they could get to 7 wins, 7-9 Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, lost 8 of 9 last year to end the season. So you knew Ron Rivera was gone. You had a good idea that Cam Newton was going to be gone. So a new regime. The one thing I do like about new regime teams, or whether or not if they're coached fantastically, the players know that this guy's going to be here. He's got a 5-year deal. So he's not going anywhere probably for at least 2 years, unless you're like Wilkes and you blow it up in Arizona. You just have a completely embarrassing organization. But I can't see that of Matt Rule, who's really succeeded each and every place that he's ever been. They're going to play hard this year. And that means it doesn't matter if this team is, 2-12 to start the season, or if they're, headed down the wrong path. Each and every week they're not packing it in, because if coach is going to be next year, if coach is going to be here next year, I better be putting some good tape out there. If we wrap up the teams in the divisions here, like just some of the overlooks, I think Tampa Bay, if we take a look at getting the best odds possible, if you can get New Orleans Saints 10 minus some juice, I think New Orleans can get 10 wins. I do. Tampa Bay is at 9 and a little bit of juice. I think they can get 9 wins. So I'm more likely to say they're going to both of those teams to go over their totals than under it. I just like Tampa Bay is going to be a good team. I don't think they're an 8-8 team. So good to me would be 9-7 or higher to at least push that. I'm going to lean against the Falcons. I everything against me, and then we'll watch this tape like, damn, they went 11-5 last year and smashed their team total. And then with the Carolina Panthers, 5.5, I'm going to lean towards the over. I think they'll get good coaching. I think they could pick up 6 wins. Which way are you going with these team totals for these 4 teams here?
Yeah, well, I was playing some pool in my head here, and you can't pick all 4 teams to go over the win total.
It's hard. Yep.
That's a bad idea to do in the division.
Yep.
That's usually not a moneymaker. So I guess, because I do like the over for the Saints. I guess that's probably the most dangerous one. It takes one injury, and then you have Jameis Winston in. Maybe they bring Taysom Hill in. According to camp reports, Winston looks great, of course. I mean, he could chuck it. But it wouldn't shock me if Tampa Bay won just 9. So if the total's 9.5, I'll take the under. But if it's at 9, I guess I'd probably pass. But if I had to pick one, I'd take the over there. So I'm kind of wishy-washy right there, depending on what the total is. Again, you got to shop around and find the good books. Go check it out over at sportsbookreview.com, by the way. I'm a company.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, look, we're always getting these in. Product placement, man, is the way to do it here, especially at sportsbookreview.com. But look, 30 minutes, talked a little bit of football in the NFC South. We're going to go over to Kyle's. We already took care of my division, the NFC East. We're going to head out to the NFC West on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, do a little live show, look around. A lot of you guys will watch this on the replay, so we do thank you for the retweets, for the likes, for the comments, and also hitting that subscribe button and also the thumbs up button. But we're going to get you ready. Pretty soon, you're going to wake up. It's going to be, oh, my goodness. It's Thursday, September 10th. It's time for actual real NFL action. We're going to lay the groundwork right here at sportsbookreview.com. If you missed the show, if you got in late, or you're just looking to check out content to make you a better gambler in the NFL, hit sbrpicks.com/NFL. You get the videos, you get the write-ups, you get the picks, you get the plays. It's all right there for you, designed, again, for you to be a better in the NFL. Both myself and Kyle, we're going to take you all the way through to the Super Bowl here right on Sportsbook Review. So thanks for tuning in. Keep in mind, again, we're going to do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right up till the season starts. Then we'll kick off our regular season programming. We'll be breaking games down. We'll be going live on Sundays. We are going to do it all and have a blast on the NFL show right here. For Donnie Seymour, he's